Hello and welcome to Unwind Sessions, where right after my shift I give the highlights of my workday and answer any questions that might have been asked at a previous session. My name is Juan. I am an English Spanish medical video remote consecutive interpreter with over 4 years of experience. Today is Friday, June 4th, 2021, and I took a total of 32 sessions today. It was mostly video remote sessions and a little bit of over the phone sessions. Today was a pretty easy day, no new vocabulary, and all of the sessions were straightforward. Really, nothing worth mentioning in the highlights, except for one thing, which I thought was pretty weird. It has nothing to do with interpreting, but maybe it was just me, maybe, or I don't know. But I thought it was kind of funny what happened. So I was in a session between the doctor and the patient, and then the patient originally had gone in for stomach pain. But after a good 15 minutes of the patient and the doctor talking, it turns out that the patient also wanted to get tested for you know what because she had symptoms and she was vaccinated and the doctor was vaccinated. But as soon as the doctor heard that she needed to get a test for you know what, because the lady's job was actually requesting a you know what test for her to actually be able to go back to work. So as soon as the patient, as soon as the doctor, I'm sorry, as soon as the doctor heard that unmentionable word, she said, "Oh wait, if you have those symptoms and you have to get tested, then I have to go put on my suit." Or I don't remember what she said. I don't even remember what it's called. But she said I need to go put on my equipment or something. I don't remember what she said. But anyway, so she left, and then when she came back. She was wearing like at the beginning of the sessions, it was just her face mask, and the patient had a face mask, and that was it. But then once the disease was mentioned, she went, and then she came back, and then she had you know, like the whole plastic suit and her facial covering and all of that, like a spacesuit, I call it. So she came in with the spacesuit, and then she went ahead, and then she examined the patient, and then she did everything that she needed to do. And then she said, "I'm gonna leave now, and then I'm gonna have the nurse come back and give you the summary and the orders and all of that." Uh, but the nurse didn't come back. It was actually the doctor that actually came back. But this time she came back with just her face mask, and she started talking to the patient again. So I thought it was kind of funny that uh, she actually went and then got dressed because it was a you know what session, and then at the end of the session, like, she didn't care. Of course, I know they were vaccinated, and I mean it probably didn't matter. And she probably didn't. So she wouldn't spread the disease anymore, even though they're vaccinated. I think you're still contagious, right? You can still spread it. Um, but yeah, I just thought that that was very funny. Like, she went and then she got changed because it was protocol, and then she went back into the room like with just a face mask on. So I just thought it was funny. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm thinking if she went to go get her suit on, she should have kept her suit on when she went into the room, right? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But anyways, I just thought that was very funny, and I wanted to share that with you guys. I'm gonna go right into topic today that I want to talk about, and the topic is, what do I think makes a great interpreter? And I'm going to go over 5 points or 5 traits that I believe makes a great interpreter. Point number one is prioritizing communication. Now, what do I mean by prioritizing communication? I have probably said this already in previous videos, but it is the interpreter's job to actually make sure that both parties are understanding each other. So, how do we achieve this? Of course, if you don't understand something or something has more than one meaning, the best way that you can actually do it is to clarify. And you go ahead and you say, I'm sorry, this is the interpreter speaking, and I do not know what this word means, or this is the interpreter speaking. I did not understand what you said, or just asking any questions, but just making sure that you actually understand everything that is said before actually giving a rendition. And another thing that I'm gonna mention is an example of teaching something, preaching what you don't practice, right? And it's not that I don't practice it, it's just that I have not mastered it, but I really am working on it. And it was actually that when I started doing the online sessions that I actually picked up on this more, and I am really working hard to improve upon this. And this is that when the patient or the other party, the LEP, starts speaking English or claims that he understands everything the English speaker is saying, you have to make sure that the other party really is understanding and that there is an effective communication going on. And this is something hard for me because I just go with the flow, right? And I have been in, well, I don't want to say in trouble, but I've been placed in difficult situations because I don't confirm that the patient is really understanding. Like, mostly what I used to do is if the patient was understanding or said that they were understanding, I would just like not interrupt them, right? I mean, if the patient says they're understanding, well, they have an interpreter there, right? Why are they going to use it if they're understanding? So I trust in their judgment, and I really shouldn't, and you shouldn't either. Because I have some stories. I'm not gonna go into them, but I have some stories on previous sessions where that has not really worked out so well for me. So that is a point that I want to improve upon, and that is to make sure that even though the patient says they understand English or they speak English, it is your job to actually make sure that they are understanding. Sometimes it's easy because you can hear them answering some weird things or just not answering correctly, and sometimes it's hard, but it is your job as an interpreter to be prioritizing communication and making sure that both parties are communicating correctly. And that is point number one. And point number two, I would say, is vast knowledge of the vocabulary for the specific field that you work for, right? And this is something that will come with practice and experience. Of course, the more you work in a certain field, the more terms that are going to come up, and you are going to be able to pick up on the terms, and you will learn the terms that are used most in that field or industry, right? And of course, it doesn't make sense. For example, if you're a medical interpreter, it doesn't make sense for someone to judge you in your legal interpretation, right? If you're not a legal interpreter, or to judge you in your business interpretation if you're just a legal interpreter or just a medical interpreter, right? So, I, having said that, um, really having um, good vocabulary and really good knowledge of the field that you're working for, I think that that is one thing that actually makes a great interpreter. For example, as a medical interpreter, I would say what are things that you need to know right off the back? All of the major organs, all of the common illnesses, common procedures, common medical tools, and etc. Right? Of course, it doesn't make sense to actually go ahead and practice a rare disease that only 5 people in the world have, right? because chances are you're never going to have to interpret that very rare disease. And in case it ever comes up, you can always clarify. You can always look up a term, right? Um, if you're video or over the phone. So we have this technology and we have these tools that we can always go ahead and research like really hard terminology or really rare terminology, but you are expected to know like the basics and without having to look them up or without having to ask for repetition or ask for the provider or for the interpreters to for the interpreters for the providers or for um, the patients, the LEPs, to actually tell you what the word means or something. However, I mean, if you ever don't know a word or something, of course, it is perfectly acceptable to go ahead and ask for repetitions, go ahead and ask for clarification, and just to straightforward, just tell the party that you don't know what they're saying, right? But I would say that that should only be like on rare occasions and rare vocabulary. But a great interpreter in the field will know just the basics right off the back, right off the bat. I actually learned that the other day. It's right off the bat, not right off the back. I actually looked it up. So yeah, I'm just having a vast knowledge of the vocabulary of the specific you work for. I would say that's point number two. And point number three is that a great interpreter is professional, respectful, and impartial. Now, there will always be a moment when you are faced with a difficult situation. It could be angry patients, angry doctors, it could be death, terminal illnesses, victims of crime, really bad crimes, and yeah, you could even be interpreting for the criminal himself, you know. You never know. This has never happened, but I have interpreted for victims of domestic violence. I have interpreted for I inmates that were going to see the doctor inside of prison, and I've interpreted for all kinds of situations. And there are going to be some situations that you don't agree with, but it is not your job to actually judge the person or to be in agreement with them or to be in disagreement with them. You really shouldn't care. Your only purpose should be point number one, right? To actually prioritize communication. And you should always be professional. You shouldn't let anything get to you. It should just slide right off your shoulders. And you should always remain respectful. I mean, even if the other person cusses you out, you have to remain professional and respectful and always give them the respect, even if they don't deserve it, because you're providing a service, right? And you are a voice for other people. So that's what I believe. You actually have to be better than the other people, right? Because not only are you representing them, but you're also representing the company that you work for, and most of all, you're representing yourself. So you always got to give a good image. You got to give 100%, and you have to not judge. You only have to look at it as an assignment and nothing else. And another one, point number four, I would say, is acknowledging your weaknesses and strengths. Now, this is actually a little bit difficult for me because I am the kind of people that the kind of person that to learn how to swim, I'm gonna go jump in the deep end, right? And I remember that when I was just an over the phone interpreter, when I was just customer service interpreter, call came in, right? The no system is perfect, so a medical call came in, and I was not supposed to take this session. And I did because I said, well, let's see how hard these sessions really are, right? But that is something that I shouldn't have done, and I didn't learn that until later. Not just because, um, not just because of the because I didn't have the medical knowledge, but because of the confidentiality that actually goes into the sessions, right? I mean, it's always confidential, but in a medical session, you actually have to let them know that everything is confidential and HIPAA and all of that. And I didn't have a HIPAA certification, and I didn't let them know about the confidentiality agreement and all of that. So that was wrong. That was way wrong. And even though the session was easy and I was able to get through it, and that lifted up my mood and it made me feel like I could take on medical sessions, when I was actually a medical interpreter, I learned that that was very wrong and that was bad and I shouldn't have done that. So that's why I say just acknowledging that if an assignment is beyond the scope of knowledge, to actually go ahead and admit it and just let someone with more experience actually go ahead and handle it, right? Nothing bad is going to happen to you. Nothing bad is going to. No one is going to look bad at you. Uh, I think is going to be the complete opposite. They are going to know that you know your limitations, and you're actually doing a better job because you're letting someone that is actually um, trained for this type of session actually go ahead and take the session. So um, uh, I would say that that is point number four, acknowledging your weaknesses and strengths. And not just acknowledging them, but actually also working on your weaknesses and strengths to become better. Why do I say weaknesses and strengths? Well, because if you're already very good at something and that is like your major strength, well, why not become better, right? I mean, it makes sense. And also, if you already know your weaknesses, well, of course you have to improve upon them. But if you improve your weaknesses and your strength, then hey, that's gonna make you much better, right? And the last thing, I would say the last thing that makes a great interpreter is experience. And that's not to say that new interpreters cannot be great interpreters, but I would say that about 2 years of interpreting is enough to actually become a great interpreter, because I believe that in 2 years of working in a particular field or actually interpreting, you will actually have a lot of experience and you will have come across a lot of situations that are going to help you in your career and in your profession, right? But why do I say experience? Because I remember when I first started as an interpreter, I was very nervous, of course, because it was a new job and I didn't want to mess up. And um, I just didn't want the thing, since I was a new interpreter, I didn't want the clients to know that I didn't know a word. So most of the time I just try to look up a word, and I never like to ask for repetitions because I didn't want them to think that I was slow, and I was very self-conscious of my interpretation, and I was so nervous about doing a great job, and it was hard. It was hard, but I noticed that maybe after 6 months, of course, I had much more confidence, and then after 2 years, I remember that I it was just much easier. And of course, when I became a video remote interpreter, this was something new, and now that I've been doing it, I've been an interpreter for 4 years. Like, I can really tell you that experience really makes a difference. And that's not to say that new interpreters can't be great. It's just that they have not been through all of the situations that an experienced interpreter has been through, right? And also, the more you work with interpretation, the more vocabulary that is going to come up, the more words, you're gonna be exposed to different cultures, And there's just so much things that you are going to learn as an interpreter with the experience of actually working as an interpreter that you are not going to learn in books or from somebody telling you, right? And another thing is that uh, whenever a lot of difficult situations come up, you actually have that experience to fall back upon, right? And I know that there are going to be a lot of unique situations that don't resemble previous things, but something is going to be similar, right? Something is going to be similar, and it'll give you kind of like a guide to follow, or it'll give you like just something to fall back on that you can actually go ahead and use that as a resource for future situations, right? And that's something that, of course, a new interpreter doesn't have because they're just fresh, right? They're just fresh off the boat. And um, I remember that when I was a new interpreter, I would ask a lot. Whenever any type of new unique situation came up, I would actually ask my coworkers or in a Facebook group or wherever I could get an answer because I had never been faced with that situation before, right? But now I very rarely do I ask about situations that happen. That is not to say that I don't. And who do you think I ask? Of course, interpreters that have much more experience than I do. And also, another thing is that if you ask other people, um, the more people you ask, the more, the more experience that is going to come together, right? So maybe you ask someone and you have never experienced that, but maybe there's another person that has experienced the very same thing or something very similar, and they can tell you how to work that out, right? And this is not really like more years of experience. This is just depends on luck, right? Maybe that person got that very bad session when they had been interpreting for just a year, right? And maybe you got it when you've been interpreting for 4 years, right? But that is not the point that I'm trying to make. The point that I am trying to make is that experience, definitely point number five, that makes a the great interpreter, because I mean, you can go through all the courses you want, but of course, once you take a session in real life, there's going to be things that the notebooks and the courses don't explain, right? So that's why I would say experience is my number five. And so just to recap, point number one, what do I think makes a great interpreter? Point number one, prioritizing communication. Point number two, uh, vast knowledge of the vocabulary of the specific field that you work for. Point number three, professionalism, being respectful and impartial. Point number four, acknowledging weaknesses and strengths and actually working to improve them. And point number five, experience. Now, this is just my personal list. I know that a lot of interpreters out there are going to have their own 5 points. And I am very curious to know what you would actually consider are the top five traits that a great interpreter must have. So I look forward to that. Thank you. That is going to be pretty much it for me today. Please leave your questions in the comments and I will answer some of them on the next session. Remember, though, I'll be here every Monday through Friday after work. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video and have not done so for more content. And don't forget to share. Happy interpreting. Goodbye.